I'm Dr. Kay Fontana, spiritual grief and sound healing practitioner and founder of Healing Our Grieving Hearts. For 6 sacred years, I walked beside my husband as his caregiver after his cancer diagnosis until his passing in January 2023. His death, following 40 years of love, was the most profound loss of my life. I faced many kinds of losses, from family members to beloved pets, and through it all, I've come to understand grief not only as sorrow, but as a sacred passage. My mission now is to help you move through the darkness with grace, to honor your own process, and to remind you that healing is possible, even if your heart is broken wide open. You are not alone. This is the Healing Our Grieving Hearts podcast. Today's episode is called Finding Your Light in the Shadows, Balancing Grief and Daily Life. Grief often arrives like a thick fog, pulling us into what I call the shadow moments. These moments are not signs of weakness or failure. They are simply part of the natural landscape of mourning. Shadows can appear in many forms. For some, it's the kind of fatigue that lingers even after a full night's rest, leaving the body heavy and unmotivated. For others, it's the inability to focus, that familiar grief fog, where everyday tasks like paying bills, making meals, or returning a phone call suddenly feel monumental. Sometimes shadows show up as isolation, when the effort of connecting with others feels too overwhelming, or when you sense that no one fully understands what you're carrying. Emotions, too, arrive in waves. Tears at unexpected times, a surge of anger at something small, or the hollow ache of longing. These shadow moments can feel frightening, as though they will never end, yet they are a normal part of the grieving process. Our culture often encourages quick recovery, urging us to move on or get back to normal. But grief does not work on a timeline, and there is no final destination of being over it. Instead, grief is an ongoing companion, sometimes quieter, sometimes louder, but always a part of our journey. When we begin to recognize these shadows for what they are, temporary experiences that rise and fall, we can soften toward ourselves. We learn that grief is not something to be conquered, but something to be walked with. In acknowledging the shadows without judgment, we create a space for light to eventually appear, however softly, alongside them. One of the most difficult aspects of grief is that life around us does not pause when our hearts break. Bills still have to be paid, children need care, the dog still needs to be walked, and appointments remain on the calendar. The contrast between the heaviness of grief and the demands of everyday life can feel overwhelming, almost like trying to walk 2 roads at once. Balancing grief and daily life is less about keeping everything under control and more about learning to move gently between the two. Imagine a scale. Balance doesn't mean keeping both sides perfectly even. It means allowing for movement. Some days leaning more toward rest, other days leaning into responsibilities. True balance is dynamic, not rigid. When I was grieving my husband, there were days I felt torn in 2 directions. Part of me wanted to retreat from the world completely, while other part of me knew I needed to help show up for life's essentials. Over time, I realized balance wasn't about doing it all. It was about honoring what was possible in the moment. If I had energy to pay a bill or fold a load of laundry, that was enough. If all I could manage was to rest on the couch and breathe, that was also enough. This fluidity is key. Some days you may find strength for more, while on others, the only thing you can manage is caring for yourself. Both are valid. Both are sacred. By approaching daily life with compassion instead of pressure, we give ourselves permission to grieve honestly while still tending in small ways to the responsibilities of living. Balance then becomes less about perfection and more about presence. Light doesn't always arrive as a dramatic breakthrough. More often, it appears in the small, tender details of life. These small moments remind us that beauty and grief can exist side by side, even when it feels impossible. For me, mornings with my dog Yoda, when he was alive, and now Dojo, became a touchstone. I'd sit outside and notice the sunlight shifting through the trees or hear the geese flying overhead in graceful formation. These little glimpses of life, ordinary and fleeting, softened my grief. They didn't take away the pain, but they reminded me that the world was still offering me beauty, even as I mourned. You too may notice light in unexpected places. It might be the laughter of a grandchild, the taste of your favorite tea, or the sound of music that soothes your spirit. It could be lighting a candle in a quiet of prayer, or in the colors of a sunset. Sometimes the light comes through memory itself, a warm recollection that brings both tears and a smile. The important part is not to search for light as though it will fix the grief. Instead, allow these moments to simply be what they are, reminders that life is still unfolding, that beauty is still possible, and that you are still capable of receiving it. Finding light doesn't mean denying the shadows. It means allowing both to exist at once. It means noticing that even in sorrow, the heart still has the capacity to feel wonder, tenderness, and love. And when we recognize and welcome these small gifts, they become stepping stones toward balance and healing. When you're grieving, even the simplest task can feel overwhelming. That's why practical, gentle tools can make such a difference in helping us balance grief with the realities of daily life. One of the first steps is to set realistic expectations. If the laundry isn't folded or the dishes stay in the sink, it's okay. Grief requires energy, and much of that energy is invisible. Remind yourself that doing enough is sufficient. It doesn't have to be perfect. Creating small rhythms rather than large routines can also be helpful. Instead of planning out an entire day, choose one or two touchstones, perhaps a morning stretch, a short walk, or a few minutes of prayer. These small anchors bring a sense of grounding without adding pressure. Grounding practices themselves are invaluable. Placing your hand over your heart and taking 3 slow breaths can bring you back into the present moment. Sound healing can also be a gentle companion. Striking a chime, listening to soothing music, or even humming softly can help shift your energy. Another essential tool is boundaries. Grief naturally lowers our capacity, and it's okay to say no to things that feel too heavy. Protecting your energy allows space for healing. Finally, focus on one gentle step at a time. Maybe today that step is drinking a glass of water, opening a window, or sitting in the sun. These may seem small, but they are acts of care and presence. Balancing grief in daily life doesn't mean managing everything perfectly. It means tending to what matters most in the moment and allowing yourself to move gently forward. Each small act becomes a way of honoring both your loss and your ongoing life. Beyond the external practices and moments of beauty, there is something even deeper, the light within you that grief cannot extinguish. It may feel dim, hidden, or unreachable at times, but it never truly goes out. This inner light is your soul's resilience, your spirit's essence, and the divine spark that continues to carry you forward. In the depths of grief, it can be easy to forget that this light still exists. The shadows can feel overwhelming, and you may wonder if you will ever feel whole again. But even in the darkest moments, your heart still carries the imprint of love. Love for the one you've lost, love that has shaped who you are, and love that continues to live within you. Sometimes this light appears as a whisper, a gentle nudge to get out of bed, the small pull toward connection, or the quiet reminder that you are still here. Other times it flares like a flame, a wave of inspiration, a sense of clarity, or the feeling of being held by something greater than yourself. Affirmations can help remind us of this truth. You might say to yourself, "Even in my sorrow, I carry the spark of life within me." Or, "My grief honors my love, and my love is eternal." These words don't erase the pain, but they point us back to the resilience we sometimes forget we have. When we honor both the shadows and the light, we live in a more compassionate balance. We give ourselves space to feel sorrow and also permission to recognize beauty. The light within reminds us that healing is not about forgetting, but about carrying love forward into the life that still awaits us. As we close, let's recap. Grief brings shadow moments, and that's normal. Daily life and grief can coexist through balance, not perfection. Light often comes in small, tender ways. Practical tools and inner awareness can help us walk with more ease. And most importantly, the light within us never goes out. I'd love to leave you with a journaling prompt. When have I noticed light, even in the shadows, this week? If this episode spoke to you, I invite you to share it with someone who may also need a little light in their shadows. The mission of Healing Our Grieving Hearts is to support women who are navigating life after loss of a spouse or soulmate, and those who are tenderly companioning their husbands through illness. Through spiritual support, sound and vibration therapies, and reflective practices, I help women find meaning, healing, and renewed purpose. For free resources, including tips on coping with grief and rediscovering joy, visit purpose.healingourgrievinghearts.com. And to connect with me on Facebook, you'll find me at facebook.com/k.fontana. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Healing Our Grieving Hearts podcast. Remember, you are not alone in your grief, and your experiences and emotions are valid. Join me next Saturday at 10 a.m. Arizona time as we continue to explore the human experience and from numbness to aliveness, reconnecting with your senses. Until next time, may your grief be held in compassion and your heart be held in light.